picture for Twitter for later. Perfect. So I think you were blinking. A wise Dominican sister I studied with in graduate school once said that theologians are the scouts of the church. They're sent out to go and look over the hills and see what's coming up that the church is going to be approaching, and then come back and report on it to the church so the church can be prepared, so the church can think about these things before we get there. So if I could be so bold, I come to you today as a techno-theologian, as someone who has gone and looked over the hill of technology and seen what's coming. And I'm here to tell you we're not prepared. What I don't want to do today is focus on specific tools. I'm not going to talk about Facebook and how to do a Facebook page. I'm not going to talk about Twitter and why you should all be on Twitter. You should. Instead, I want to focus on some of the key points that Sister Angela Ann told us about last year. If you were in Atlanta last year, Sister Angela Ann talked about the digital culture and the need for catechists to know and embrace the digital culture, because that's where our young people are. And we need to understand it if we're going to catechize effectively in the future. And so those are the kind of the strands I want to pick up on today. And I'm going to do that in 3 pieces. I'm going to tell a story. Then I'm going to draw out 2 implications from that story, 2 characteristics of the digital culture that we want to look at. And then look at the implications for our work as servants of the story. So the story I want to tell you about is how I started a minor internet need. This happened about a year ago, in fact, a year ago, April 1st. And the short version is, a friend of mine on Twitter had made a snarky comment about another Catholic organization who was being kind of spammy on Twitter, which is never a good thing. And someone kind of called her out on her snarky attitude. And so she tweeted something to the effect of, well, I didn't know that we couldn't be snarky and funny on Twitter as Catholics. Could someone please tell me what are the Catholic rules of Twitter? Now, I'm kind of a snarky person myself. My associate director over there knows this. Snarky is sarcastic. And so I started tweeting her some ideas of what the Catholic rules for Twitter might be. And the first one I did was that we should never tweet anything from the New American Bible without express permission of the USCCB. Oh, you get the joke. I'm so happy about that. Now, there's 2 things about this. Number 1, I added the hashtag Catholic Rules for Twitter. And a hashtag in Twitter is a way for people to follow a conversation. By having that hashtag, people can follow that and see what other people are saying about the same subject. The second thing I did was I put the @ sign before USCCB. The Twitter account for the USCCB is @USCCB. When I put that @ sign there, that meant the USCCB knew what I said. I was calling them out a little bit, I'll admit it. The USCCB saw this, and at first thought that we were serious. And so they tweeted back, if you want to, So they tweeted back, feel free to tweet anything you want from us, it's not a bad thing. Then they realized that it was a joke. And what you have to understand, this was the end of the day on Friday, and this is the last thing that the USCCB tweeted out that day. They tweeted out, if you want a good laugh, check out Catholic Rules for Twitter. And that's when things got interesting. Because the USCCB has thousands of followers on Twitter, and every single one of them got to see that message if they were on at that time. They have many more followers than I had. It started out just as a small little thing among friends. If we wanted to map it out, this is kind of how it started. Is one person made one comment, it goes down to another person, it starts to branch out a little bit. But then the USCCB got hold of it, and they sent it out. And those people sent it out. And those people sent it out. And within 24 hours, we had over 400 Catholic Rules for Twitter being posted on Twitter. That should frighten you. It scared the heck out of me. I was glued to my laptop looking at this. My wife was trying to call me up for dinner. I can't, this is too fascinating. I want to share a few of them with you, because they were really creative. Tweets posted on Saturday night count as being written on Sunday. On fasts, only 1 full tweet is allowed, 2 smaller tweets permitted if they do not equal a full 140 characters. Married couples should not block the act of tweeting, but may abstain from tweeting on certain days if necessary. That may be my favorite. And Mary turned to the disciples and said, retweet whatever he says. Now, believe it or not, this story, as funny and interesting as it is, illustrates the disruptive nature of these new technologies. Now, technology has always been disruptive. And I want to take a, not recent, but modern example. I have a number of books on my shelves at home, old catechetical texts that I've rescued from the dustbin at work, or that my mom gave me some of her old elementary texts. Stuff I just find fascinating. You know, this is way before my time. Probably not some of you, I'm sorry, but there's one text that I love on my bookshelf. I come back to it again and again, and it's the Old Confraternity Teacher's Guide from 1960. And I was flipping through it one day and saw he had a section on media, and I saw this quote which just fascinated me. The catechist will find that catechetical materials in film strips, both black and white and in color, is steadily increasing in volume. He will find satisfactory film strips which correlate with courses of study and with the catechism. The number, and this is the part that got me, the number of catechetical subjects available on sound motion picture film is comparatively limited. The teaching value of the silent movie is greatly reduced by the fact that today pupils are accustomed to sound movies. You laugh, but this shows that technology is disruptive. That old technologies no longer work because it's not what the young people are accustomed to. They're no longer effective. They don't mean the same things. This is being accelerated today, and I thank God that the bishops are taking a notice of this. In particular, I harp on this every time I give a presentation on this subject. If you've not read it yet, go and find Bishop Herzog's 2010 address to the US bishops on social media. He says that although social media has been around for less than 10 years, it doesn't have the makings of a fad. We are being told that it is causing as fundamental a shift in communication patterns and behavior as the printing press did 500 years ago, and I don't think I have to remind you of what happened when the Catholic Church was slow to adapt to that new technology. The digital revolution is changing everything. So I want to pull out two principles of the digital culture that I think we should be cognizant of as we move forward in catechesis. The first is that the digital revolution democratizes the tools. Anyone can participate in the digital revolution. The barriers to entry are so low, so inexpensive. We all have them in our pockets anymore. And don't be confused by what this is. This is not a cell phone. This is a miniature computer. We are living in the future. What was the future envisioned like, 50 years ago? It was handheld communicators and video phones. We got them both. My children Skype with my mom all the time. My mom helps my oldest son with his spelling over Skype every week. We are living in the future, and everyone has access to it. Catholic rules for Twitter. Anyone can access that. Anyone with a phone, with a computer, with a simple internet line. Even if you don't have it at home, you can go to the library and access these things for free. The barriers to entry are low, and anyone can participate. Second, information is cheap. This is kind of a truism in technology circles. That in the past, information was expensive. It took years in the Middle Ages for people to copy a book. Even in the time of the printing press, it took huge machines to do mass production. It wasn't until relatively late that we got mimeographs and things like that, so people could put out simple flyers and things on their own, but that was always locally constrained, because you couldn't get those out to a mass audience. Nowadays, though, with the digital revolution, a single file can be copied infinitely at no cost. It doesn't cost a thing. Information is cheap. Anyone can get information. Catholic rules for Twitter, anyone could find that. Using that hashtag, it was easy to find. And it got spread out there. It was even mentioned on the blog of the USA Today. Because anyone could find it, anyone could access it. There was no barriers to the information. So these two principles, coupled together, become extremely powerful. They change everything, and we're seeing it all over the place. We're seeing it in the publishing industry, which is being hugely disrupted by these technologies. Publishing companies are becoming obsolete. I'm sorry to the publishing companies in here. But we're disintermediating. That's the fancy word. If you want a fancy word to take home, it's disintermediation. Cutting out the middleman. Authors can publish on their own now, and we're seeing it take off like gangbusters. Jonathan Colton is an online musician who just does funny, geeky kind of songs about zombies and supervillains in love. And he makes a living doing it. He doesn't go through a publishing company. He doesn't go through a music company. He puts it all out online for free. You can get any of his stuff for free. But then he packages it and says, it's hard to get it all free because it's all individual files, but I'm going to put it all together in a nice file, and you pay $70, you get everything I've ever made. And he makes a living doing this. He does cruises every year where his fans come and they do music and have beefy stuff going on. He makes a living doing this. No middleman. We saw it in the Arab Spring, where protesters were able to use these digital technologies to inform each other of, here come the authorities, or we're going to meet up at this time at this place. Hugely disruptive. This changes everything. So what does this mean then for our roles as catechetical leaders in our dioceses and parishes? Well, let's go back to that first question that's implied by the Confraternity Teacher's Guide. What are our people used to today? And what methods are we using that are losing their effectiveness because it's not where the people are? We can no longer be the leaders of many programs. It's not going to work anymore. As John said, there's too many networks out there. You couldn't possibly fit in with every single one of them. We have to move to empowering people and become connectors of these relationships. We need to be the hub of the wheel. But not just the hub as if we're reaching out to everyone else. We need to help everyone connect up and share resources and say, did you know this interesting thing these people are doing over here? Have you talked to this person over here? They have a really cool idea that's really jiving with what you're doing over here. That's going to be part of our role, is being a facilitator of relationships, not just being the person doling out the information. Because like I said, people can find the information. They don't need us to tell us what's in the catechism. They can go online and find it. They need to find ways to live that out as disciples of Christ. Catholic blogs, I think, can be really instructive in how we do this. Because blogs are so cheap and anyone can set them up, there are these wonderful faith communities that have sprung up around very specific interests. John mentioned CatholicMom.com, Lisa Hendy's site. Wonderful resource for women who are interested in how do I live as a Catholic, as a mom, as a mother in this world. The Integrated Catholic Life, which was co-founded by Randy Hain, who has a passion for how do we live our faith in the business world. How do I be an ethical business person in the secular business world as a Catholic? And even the Catholic Drinky site, about the intersection of Catholicism and alcohol. Surprisingly profound stuff in there. This actually, Sarah, the young woman who started this blog, was at a bloggers conference, and the Catholic Foodie blog is another big blog, and they were talking about that. And someone made an offhand remark that, but no one's ever going to create the Catholic Drinky blog. Well, Sarah took that as a challenge. And she's run with it. You can see they're actually going to be doing a tour to France. The followers of her blog are going to do a tour of France, and I'm sure going to be enjoying some wonderful wine as part of it. These things can even transcend specific sites, though. My friend Ashley Collins, who works for the Archdiocese of Chicago, started this wonderful meme during Lent about baconless Fridays. Bacon's huge online. I don't know why that is. It pops up everywhere in very surprising places. But he would post little pictures, funny little sayings, just to come together as Catholics online and to remind ourselves, it's Friday, I shouldn't be eating meat. But then sharing that with others and letting others be a part of that as well and seeing, maybe someone posts that and a friend of his says, I didn't know he was Catholic. I didn't know he practiced his faith. It becomes a way of witnessing to all those folks that we're networked with online, just by the simple act of sharing. There's one last thing that I need to address, and this really picks up with a bit with what John was saying about apps. We need to be able to give people the tools to do new things in old ways. And we as a church are not very good about that. In particular when it comes to apps. The information's out there, but not all of it. And if there's anyone in this room that has any influence with the USCCB, I am begging you. We need to make the New American Bible and the Catechism available to Catholic developers who want to create apps around that. And we have not done that. There are Catholic app developers right now who have been asking for years for access to that information and are just being told, we're working on it, we're working on it. We don't have to do it alone. We can rely on these great people out there who have the expertise, who have the passion for these things, to do it on our behalf. And I know, there's funding issues and things like that around these materials, but just do it at a decent licensing fee and they'll make their money back when they sell the app. There's ways to do this responsibly and to participate with these things that are going on. The church cannot afford to fear these new technologies and cannot afford to ignore their impact on our work of evangelization and catechesis. We must embrace new methods if we're to fulfill Christ's call to make disciples of all nations, including the digital continent. Thank you, and God bless.